Hi, good morning. Thanks for joining us today. So when Yelena asked me to come, and she knows a lot about my story and how I came to be here, I thought, 8 minutes. They clearly did not get my profile when they only gave me 8 minutes. So I'll try and give you some snippets. I really feel that from the inception of coming into this world, I was given great gifts, yet there were some definite challenges. I didn't come from a well-to-do family, which is normal, for most people. But I also had sort of this fire in me. I was never going to be the girl that was going to get the job and marry the boy and, kind of do the good Midwestern girl thing. I was a performer. So I was a figure skater growing up. I've been in sports and entertainment my whole life. I remember coming home at about 12 years old, 13 years old. I used to get up every morning at 4 in the morning, go to the ice rink. I would train. I would walk to school. I would walk home from school, go through my mom's front door, grab my second lunch for the day, because those of you that train know how hungry you get, and then I would walk out the back door and go back to the ice rink. Well, one day I was walking home, and my father was walking up to meet me, and I thought, that's odd. Wonder why he's walking up to meet me. This 6'4" man and all alpha male looks at me and goes, "We can't afford to have you skate anymore." I was crushed. It was like my first heartbreak to tell me I couldn't figure skate anymore. I did not know what to do with my life. My grades started plummeting. I ultimately dropped out of high school. Here I was, high school dropout, didn't know what I was going to do. I continued to try and skate and dance when money could afford it. And then I met my first boyfriend, and he worked for a singer named Prince, some of you may have heard of. And so I got to spend the next 3.5 years touring and being around this amazing artist. I then landed a job with a woman named Kirstie Alley, who was of Cheers fame or Veronica's Closet. So here I was, this 22-year-old girl in Los Angeles working for Kirstie Alley every day, and I was like, wow, I finally arrived. Well, let's just say that didn't work out so well. She was a wonderful woman. There was a not-so-wonderful man in her life that decided that he wanted to be verbally abusive to me every day, named James Wilder. So I put my tail between my legs, and I called my then boyfriend and said, I want to come back to Minnesota, where I'm from. Go back to Minnesota. Long and the short of it, that didn't work out. Packed my bags with $100 in my pocket and drove back to LA. I took a fateful trip at 25 to a place called Dubai. Total incident, that's a whole other story for another time. So I come to Dubai, and it had everything at that time that LA didn't have. LA, if you've ever lived there, it is definitely all it's good and all it's bad that you've heard. So I really fell in love with this place. I at times had no money, I at times had no friends, I at times had nothing. And I lived in a city like Los Angeles with millionaires everywhere that claimed to be my friends. Not one of them helped me off my face when I was down. Not one of them believed in me. But I always tell people when they ask me why I love UAE, I say when I was hungry, an Arab fed me. When I had no home, an Arab housed me. So I fell in love with UAE. And so I was back and forth between LA and UAE. And I, at one point, through a chain of events, ended up, once again, at rock bottom. And I was living with these two gay guys in Miami, Florida. I didn't know where to go, what to do. And somebody once again believed in me and thought, you know what? You got a knack for sales. I knew a bit about fashion, and gave me a job as an agent in Miami Beach. So we went to this convention, and a woman named Christy McCormick was there. Christy McCormick did for me, the first day I met her, what some people I had considered at that time my best friends had never done. She looked at me and she said, "You belong in New York City." I was like, I just started this job, I just got to Miami Beach, I don't know. No, you belong in New York City. She got me interviews with IMG, Elle Magazine, Self Magazine, and ultimately I landed a job at Next Management in New York City. Now, when I landed this job at Next, if anybody knows about fashion, people will give their right arm to work in Next Management in New York City. It's one of the top billing agencies in the world. And here they were, just scooped me up on a wing and a prayer. I had a very, very tough boss to work for, but I sat with the best agents and I tried to listen and learn. I never showed up late. I never took a lunch break. And there I was at one of the top billing agencies, this little Midwestern girl who had just been pulled out of the gutter by this angel. Anyhow, I worked for a couple different agencies in New York City, and I went on a business trip to Dallas, Texas, and we were at this convention. I went out with a bunch of agents, and I went out for food and drinks, and I get home that night, and the next morning, I'm supposed to be down at the convention, and I'm really sick, and I'm throwing up. And they're calling, going, do you need a doctor? Do you need a doctor? Well, like I'm sure many of you, and I think, men have different pressures than women, you have this idea of like, they have to think I'm strong. They can't know I'm weak. I have to have this impression of this pillar of perfection and strength and, especially being in entertainment. I didn't want people to know I was weak. I didn't want them to see me broken. So a girl that I had waited tables with back in LA happened to be an agent also. We'd come up the ranks together, happened to be there. And she brought me my medicine because the doctor found out when she came to my room and I was throwing up blood that I had a severe stomach ulcer. I was incapable of holding down water. I had thrown up the interior of my stomach and I could barely stand without passing out. I will never forget looking at my friend Chanel Kong and saying, please don't tell anybody you've seen me like this. I was so fearful that people would know I was broken. I was so fearful, I was in total denial I had an ulcer. The doctor's like, you need to slow down. I was like, slow down, please. So I went about my business. I flew to LA, I flew back to New York. I was supposed to go open a franchise for the company I was working with in Miami. There I was, continually seeing doctors, continually putting on the face, makeup, pretending like I was okay. I'd have fainting spells. I wouldn't want people to know. I couldn't eat hardly anything. I was falling apart. I went through 9 different doctors. They had me on the Nexium, the Prevacet, the Prilosec, the whatever. I'm sure some of you have probably been on some of these prescriptions for stomach ulcers or gastritis. I eventually was talking to a friend of mine, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I, for the first time, don't know what to do. And he said, you have to go back to performing. So I packed my bags and once again moved back to Los Angeles. Everyone's going, what are you going to do about your career? Is everything okay? I'm like, I just don't want to talk to anybody. I did the typical guy thing. I went back in my cave. Didn't want anyone to know. And I finally called a friend of mine named Maite Garcia, who had gone from being a dancer to an actress. And I said, I miss performing, but I don't want to go back to what I was doing before. I want to act. Thinking she'd laugh at me. And she didn't. She said, come on. She taught me. She told me where to study. So I started studying acting. And I took it with a vengeance like everything else. Do you know what the best thing acting gave me? Was the ability to be vulnerable again. The ability to say, I'm not perfect. The ability to be able to be open to the human experience as opposed to the airbrushed one we see in Cosmo magazine or magazine du jour. So I'm studying with a woman named Michelle Danner, and she says to me, her sister says to me, what do you know about this place called Dubai? I said, I told her a little bit about my history with it. She goes, I want Michelle to go and teach there. Now this is about, I think, 2008, which was the heart of the recession. So I'm calling, I'm trying to get every contact I can in Dubai, and nobody wants an acting coach. No one has the funds, no one's interested, no one gets it. So I go into Michelle one day, I said, listen, sales aren't going that well, we're having a hard time with the payment gateway, but I think I'm going to go to Dubai a month early just to see if I can make it work. She goes, okay, when are you coming back? I said, I got a one-way ticket. She literally looked at me, are you crazy? Well, I was just crazy enough. I took a one-way ticket here back to Dubai. I called a friend of mine who had an apartment in Gusais. So if you guys know where Gusais is, it's kind of far. Called another friend of mine. I had $1,000 in my pocket and a one-way ticket. So some friends helped me out. I called Barefaced Talent, which is one of the talent agencies here. I said, listen, I have zero money. I know you don't know who the heck I am, but I used to do, some presenting and things. I'll let you represent me exclusively if you allow me to use your office to market this program. So they said, sure. These people that didn't know me, had no idea who I was, gave me their office, and every day I just pounded the pavement from morning till night. And I have to tell you, often I laid in that bed in Gusais going, why did I come to the desert to try to teach people to act? I really thought I made a big mistake at times, but I kept getting up. So things started going better, and I started making a name for myself. Well, there's a gentleman named Tim Smythe. I don't know if any of you guys know of, but he was the head of FilmWorks. He has, unfortunately, since passed away, but his legacy definitely lives on here in UAE. At the time, he had brought MI4 here. He had brought Syriana here. He had brought all the big productions that you know that were filmed in UAE came through FilmWorks, and because of this man, Tim Smythe. Now, if you ever met Tim, he's not really like the warmest guy when you first meet him. So even me, I get intimidated too. So he's a little intimidating. But this wonderful woman named Jessica Swan, who used to be on Dubai Eye here, this little blonde pixie with blue eyes, had caught sight of my work. And she too believed in me. She put me on a panel on the radio with Tim Smythe. And I was with Tim Smythe and a bunch of other people with titles much, much bigger than me. And after, he said, I want to do business with you. We need a good casting director in this town. I said, let me tell you something. I was in management. I ended up in the hospital. I'm not doing it again. Well, as I was trying to cultivate these actors, I didn't see any great opportunities for them. 6 months later, I was in Tim Smythe's office going, this town needs a good casting director. I think I'm the woman for the job. He said, I figured you'd be back. So since then, we now have Miranda Davidson Studios, which does media training, which includes acting, public speaking, and we do casting as well. We have been blessed enough to work on a large Kanye West project that was shot in Doha. We did a $20 million Chinese movie with Tim Smythe when he was alive. It was the largest Chinese movie to ever be shot out of China here in Dubai. And we most recently did the Abu Dhabi portion of a little movie you might have heard of called Fast and the Furious 7. We are currently in pre-production for another major motion picture, but I can't tell you what it is yet, but I'm sure you'll get wind of it. My point to this is to just tell you, number one, nobody does it alone. Number two, I don't want to perpetuate this idea of perfection. I don't want to perpetuate this idea of immortalization, whether you're talking about a celebrity or your boss or your father, whoever it is. I want to perpetuate the human experience. I am only as good as the company I keep. I am only as good as the people that I can touch, that I can connect with, that I can feed off of. One thing I have learned, and there's a lot that I still have to learn, that's for sure. But the one thing I've learned is the people you surround yourself with can either be toxic, poison you and bring you down, and end you up in the hospital like I was, or they can be pillars of strength, support, wings. You don't need to constantly fight the battle. You don't constantly need to be strong. And you don't constantly need to try to live up to perfection. I have most certainly felt that I could not go on before. And if it was not for a grave support system, one of the top ones being my assistant who's sitting here with me, who has in the last few years been my pillar of strength when I was incapable of being strong. So thank you.